The courtroom was supposed to be routine, a minor fraud hearing. A veteran on trial for selling his service medals just to pay medical bills. Emma sat quietly in the back row, wearing blue scrubs straight from her night shift, hands folded calmly in her lap. Around her neck hung a small ribbon and medal. The prosecutor noticed first. Then the whispers started. "That's fake," someone muttered. Judge Keller leaned forward, irritation already in his voice. "This court will not tolerate stolen valor," he said sharply, his gavel tapped once. He pointed directly at her. "Take that off, Beach. This isn't a costume party." The room went silent. Emma didn't argue, didn't react, didn't even blink. She just looked at the young veteran standing alone at the defense table. The reason she came. Then she spoke quietly. "It's authorized, Your Honor." The judge slammed his gavel. "Baliev, remove her." The Baliev stepped forward, and that's when the courtroom doors opened behind him. Heavy, slow, and a Navy SEAL Admiral walked in, already calling her by a name no civilian should have known. Iron Widow. Before we begin, comment where you're watching from and subscribe if you believe real heroes don't always look like heroes. Because this story starts in silence and ends with an entire courtroom learning what respect really means. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant, the kind of sterile calm that made every sound feel louder than it should. Morning hearings were usually quick. Traffic violations, minor disputes, cases nobody remembered by lunch, but courtroom 3B felt heavier that day. Maybe it was the rain tapping softly against the tall windows. Or maybe it was the young Marine standing alone at the defendant's table, shoulders stiff inside a borrowed suit that didn't quite fit. His name was Daniel Ruiz, a recently discharged infantryman charged with illegally selling military-issued equipment. The prosecutor framed it as fraud. The paperwork called it theft, but anyone who looked closely could see exhaustion written into the way he held himself. In the third row behind him sat Emma, still wearing light blue hospital scrubs from a 12-hour night shift. Blonde hair tied loosely back, hands folded calmly in her lap. She hadn't slept. She hadn't gone home. She came straight from the ER because Ruiz had nobody else willing to stand beside him. Most people in the courtroom barely noticed her at first. She looked ordinary, another tired nurse supporting a patient. But small details stood out if someone paid attention. Her posture was too straight for exhaustion. Her breathing slow and controlled, almost measured. And around her neck rested a pale blue ribbon holding a small gold medal that caught the fluorescent lights whenever she moved. It wasn't flashy. It didn't sparkle. It simply existed there with quiet weight, like something that belonged somewhere far more serious than a county courtroom. Ruiz glanced back at her once, fear clear in his eyes, and she gave him a small, reassuring nod. That was enough to steady him. She had stitched his shoulder weeks earlier after he walked into the ER trying to hide an infected wound because he couldn't afford treatment. She treated him anyway. No paperwork, no judgment, just care. That decision, though, had angered hospital administration, and someone had decided Emma needed to be reminded of her place. The prosecutor noticed the medal midway through opening statements. His voice faltered for half a second before sharpening with curiosity. He leaned toward the clerk, whispered something, then turned his attention directly toward the gallery. The whisper spread faster than sound should travel. A woman near the aisle leaned closer to another spectator. A lawyer raised an eyebrow. The bailiff shifted subtly, eyes narrowing as he studied the ribbon. Judge Keller followed their gazes, irritation already forming on his face. He was known for strict courtroom decorum, a man who believed authority meant control at all times. His gavel tapped once, sharp enough to silence the murmurs instantly. "We'll maintain order," he said, scanning the room until his eyes landed on Emma. He paused, expression tightening as he noticed the medal. He added slowly. "Stand up." Emma rose without hesitation. No confusion, no defensiveness, just calm obedience. Every eye in the courtroom turned toward her. Ruiz looked like he might speak, but she gave the slightest shake of her head. "Not yet." Judge Keller adjusted his glasses, studying the medal with open skepticism. "This court has standards," he said. "Decorations and displays are not permitted unless relevant to proceedings." His tone hardened. "Remove it." The words hung in the air longer than expected. Emma didn't move. She simply answered, voice steady and respectful. "It is authorized, Your Honor." That should have ended it. Instead, it ignited something in him. Authority challenged, even politely, felt like defiance. The judge leaned forward, annoyance sharpening into hostility. Authorized by whom? He demanded. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like stolen valor. The accusation rippled through the room like cold water. Ruiz turned fully now, disbelief written across his face. A few spectators exchanged uncomfortable looks. Emma remained still, hands relaxed at her sides. Inside her mind, though, something shifted. Not fear, not anger, but memory. Rotor blades echoing across desert air. Radio chatter layered with urgency, the metallic taste of dust and adrenaline. She pushed it away the same way she always did, returning to the present with disciplined control. It is authorized, she repeated softly. The judge's patience snapped. He slammed the gavel, the crack echoing against the courtroom walls. Take that off, Batch, he said sharply, voice carrying farther than he intended. This is a courtroom, not a costume party. The silence afterward felt suffocating. Even the prosecutor looked uncomfortable. The bailiff hesitated near the aisle, clearly unsure how far this was about rules and how much had become personal. Emma didn't react to the insult. She didn't argue or raise her voice. Instead, she glanced briefly toward the American flag beside the bench, her expression unreadable, then back to the judge. Years earlier, she had stood beneath that same flag in places where rules were measured in survival, not ego. Compared to those memories, this moment felt strangely small. Still, she understood something important. This wasn't about her anymore. If she resisted emotionally, Ruiz's case would suffer. So, she remained calm, allowing the humiliation to settle without resistance. Judge Keller interpreted her composure as defiance. Bailiff, he ordered, pointing directly at her. Escort her out if she refuses to comply. The bailiff stepped forward reluctantly. Up close, he noticed faint scars along Emma's wrist. Thin lines partially hidden beneath her sleeve. Training scars, old injuries. He hesitated just long enough to betray doubt before continuing. Ruiz finally spoke, voice cracking. Your Honor, she's here for me. She saved. The gavel slammed again. One more interruption and you'll join her outside. The judge barked. The room tightened with tension. Emma gave Ruiz a reassuring look, silently, telling him to stay quiet. She turned back to the bailiff and nodded gently, as if apologizing for the situation he'd been placed in. As the bailiff reached toward her arm, the court clerk froze at his desk. He had been staring at the medal since the accusation began, recognition slowly dawning into certainty. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, pulse racing. He knew that ribbon. Every service member did. Training lectures, history briefings, ceremonies. It wasn't something you forgot. His throat went dry. If he was right, the courtroom wasn't witnessing stolen valor. It was witnessing something far worse. Under the desk, hidden from view, his hand slipped toward his phone. Across the room, Emma closed her eyes for the briefest second, steadying her breath as footsteps approached behind her. And just as the bailiff's hand finally touched her shoulder, the heavy courtroom doors creaked open. The sound of the courtroom doors opening should have interrupted everything, but no one turned immediately. Judge Keller was still focused on asserting control, his attention fixed on Emma, as if the entire authority of the law depended on her compliance. The bailiff's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, hesitant rather than forceful, and Emma allowed it without resistance. Her calm unsettled him more than defiance would have. Most people argued when embarrassed publicly. Most people pleaded when threatened with contempt. She did neither. She simply stood there breathing slow and even, eyes steady, as if humiliation was something she had learned long ago to endure without reaction. The murmurs that followed the judge's insult had not fully faded, and the prosecutor seized the moment, stepping forward with renewed confidence. Your Honor, he said carefully. If this individual is falsely representing military honors, that may constitute criminal misrepresentation. The word falsely landed heavily, and several spectators leaned forward, curiosity replacing discomfort. Emma's gaze drifted briefly toward Daniel Ruiz at the defense table. He looked horrified, shaking his head under his breath as though trying to deny reality itself. Weeks earlier, she had watched him nearly collapse from untreated infection because pride kept him from asking for help. She remembered the smell of antiseptic, the tremor in his hands, the quiet shame when he admitted he sold pieces of his past just to survive. That was why she was here. Not to defend herself, but to make sure someone told the court he wasn't a criminal, just a man abandoned after service. She knew speaking now would shift attention away from him entirely. So she stayed silent, absorbing the weight meant for someone else. The bailiff cleared his throat softly. He whispered, almost apologetic. Please cooperate. She nodded once, not in submission, but acknowledgement. Judge Keller leaned back, satisfied he had regained control of the room. The dignity of this court will be maintained. He declared, we cannot allow individuals to parade unauthorized symbols of heroism. He emphasized the word unauthorized as if delivering a verdict already decided. A few people in the gallery nodded, convinced by confidence rather than evidence. Authority had a way of shaping belief. Emma lowered her eyes briefly, not in shame, but reflection, and the faint movement caused the metal to catch the overhead light again. The clerk noticed it immediately. His heart began pounding harder. The pale blue ribbon, the precise arrangement of stars, the unmistakable shape. He had seen photographs during training seminars, heard instructors speak of recipients with reverence bordering on sacred. His fingers trembled as realization fully set in. Across the courtroom, the prosecutor continued speaking, building momentum, suggesting investigations, implying deception. Each word laid pressure onto the moment like bricks forming a wall. Under his desk, the clerk unlocked his phone with shaking hands. He hesitated only a second before dialing a number he hadn't used in years. A former Marine gunnery sergeant who now worked at a nearby naval installation. Protocol screamed at him not to interfere, but something deeper overrode caution. "Nunny," he whispered when the call connected, turning slightly away from the bench. "I need you to listen carefully." While he spoke quietly, describing the medal and the judge's orders, Emma remained motionless at the center of attention. The courtroom interpreted her silence as guilt. Yet, there was something unbreakable in her posture that unsettled anyone who looked too closely. Even the bailiff noticed it now. The way her shoulders remained relaxed, the absence of fear in her breathing. People who were pretending usually overperformed emotion. She looked like someone conserving energy waiting. Judge Keller tapped his gavel impatiently. "Last warning," he said sharply. "Remove the decoration or you will be held in contempt of court." The words echoed across the chamber, final and absolute. Emma lifted her eyes again, meeting his gaze without hostility. "Your Honor," she said quietly. "I mean, no disrespect." That was all. No explanation, no defense. The simplicity of her response irritated him further because it denied him confrontation. He interpreted restraint as stubbornness. "Then comply," he snapped. The bailiff shifted closer, uncertainty visible in every movement. Behind him, Ruiz stood abruptly. "She's telling the truth," he blurted before fear could stop him. "She saved my life." The gavel slammed again, louder this time. "Sit down," the judge thundered. Ruiz obeyed slowly, anger and helplessness fighting across his face. Meanwhile, miles away, the voice on the clerk's phone had changed tone completely. Casual curiosity vanished, replaced by controlled urgency. Questions came rapid and precise. Description of the medal, location, judge's name, confirmation of contempt order. When the clerk finished, silence filled the line for a long second. Then came a response spoken with quiet intensity. "Stay where you are. Don't let them take it." The call ended. The clerk swallowed hard, realizing he might have just triggered something far beyond a local courtroom dispute. Back inside the chamber, tension thickened as spectators sensed escalation without understanding why. Emma seemed to feel it too, not through sound, but instinct. Years of surviving unpredictable environments had taught her when situations were about to shift. Still, she said nothing. Judge Keller finally stood, robe shifting as he leaned forward. "Bailiff, detain her," he ordered. "The medal will be confiscated as evidence pending investigation." The words drew a collective intake of breath. Even the prosecutor hesitated now, sensing the moment had gone too far. The bailiff reached again, more firmly this time, fingers closing around Emma's arm. She allowed it, her expression unchanged, though somewhere deep inside old memories stirred. Orders shouted over gunfire. Moments when control vanished and decisions carried irreversible consequences. Yet here she chose restraint again. She turned her head slightly toward Ruiz and gave him a reassuring look that said everything without words. "Stay calm. This will pass." As the bailiff prepared to guide her toward the aisle, the courtroom clerk slowly stood from his desk, eyes fixed on the entrance behind everyone else. He heard footsteps approaching from the hallway, measured, synchronized, unmistakably disciplined. At first, they blended with ordinary courthouse noise, but then the rhythm grew clearer, heavier, purposeful. A few spectators noticed and turned their heads. The sound carried authority long before anyone appeared. Emma's breathing slowed even further, as if she recognized that cadence without needing to see it. The judge raised his gavel again, ready to finalize his order. And then the courtroom doors opened fully, revealing figures standing in perfect formation at the threshold. Before anyone spoke, a voice from the doorway called out one name. Quiet, steady, unmistakably familiar. The voice carried through the courtroom with calm authority, not loud, yet impossible to ignore. Master Chief. The single word froze movement more effectively than the judge's gavel ever had. Conversations died mid-breath. The baif's grip loosened instinctively, his training reacting before his thoughts could catch up. Every head turned toward the doorway where several uniformed figures now stood, framed by the morning light spilling in from the hallway. Their presence changed the air itself. They did not rush, did not announce themselves with force. They simply entered with measured precision. Dress shoes striking the tile in synchronized rhythm that echoed with unmistakable discipline. At their center walked a Navy SEAL Admiral in full dress whites, posture rigid, expression unreadable. His eyes were fixed on only one person in the room. Judge Keller blinked rapidly, irritation flickering into confusion. Courtrooms belong to judges. Authority flowed downward.